I didn't wake up in her bed. I woke up to him. I don't know how I ended up here, disoriented, half-dressed, and tangled in sheets that smelled like a dream I was too scared to fully live. The light creeping through the blinds was too bright, too harsh, as if it wanted to shine a spotlight on everything I had foolishly ignored. I tried to piece together the fragmented night, but it was like watching a film reel that had been cut and spliced in all the wrong places. He wasn't here. But the bed, the scent, the indelible memory of her skin pressed against mine, it all told a story I didn't want to hear. The throbbing in my head matched the hammering in my chest, and for a moment, I thought maybe this was the panic of waking up from a bad dream, only to find the nightmare was just beginning. I shifted under the covers, feeling the unsettling sensation of someone's presence lingering in the air. But there was no one. The room felt too empty for something so intimate. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. I had been waiting for this, for her, for so long. The late-night conversations, the shared laughter, the stolen glances, the moments when she'd lean just a little too close, and I'd pretend not to feel the heat of her skin against mine. It had been building, slow and unspoken. Every time she touched me, it was like an electric current shot through me, igniting everything I'd kept buried for so long. There were so many nights when I imagined how this would unfold. I had rehearsed it in my mind 1,000 times, what I would say, what I would do. But never this. And now, waking up here, with my heart pounding in my throat, it all felt wrong. I wasn't supposed to be here. The sound of the shower turning on in the distance jerked me back into reality. I didn't need to ask who it was. I already knew. She wasn't in the room. But I could hear him. The boyfriend. The invisible, unspoken third party who had always been the ghost haunting our friendship, taunting me with the knowledge that what I longed for, what I thought I could finally have, would never be mine. Not like this. She had a boyfriend. The words hit me like ice water. Cold. Final. Crushing. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not after everything I'd let myself believe. Not after she'd whispered my name last night with a vulnerability that felt too real, too close. But now, the reality settled in with a dull, sickening thud in my stomach. The betrayal wasn't just in her actions. It was in me, too. How could I have been so blind, so foolish, so desperate for something that had never been mine? I sat up, my body aching in places I hadn't noticed before. I rubbed my eyes, trying to force myself awake, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach. The anger started to build, slow and deliberate, spreading like wildfire. She had played me. Maybe he didn't even know. Or worse, maybe he did. The sounds of the shower grew louder, but there was no comfort in the rhythm of it. No warmth in the thought of what had happened here. I wasn't supposed to be in this bed. I wasn't supposed to be a part of this world. But I was. And I could already feel myself changing. There was no going back now. The water from the shower rushed through the pipes, a constant, mind-numbing sound that only made my thoughts more jumbled. I rubbed my hands over my face and glanced toward the door, still half expecting her to walk through it at any moment, to explain this madness away. I don't want you here again. Her voice replayed in my mind, like an echo, the coldness of it cutting deeper with each repetition. My chest tightened. I couldn't stop it. My mind clung to the idea that maybe, just maybe, it had been a mistake. A slip of the tongue, maybe. She hadn't meant it. She couldn't have meant it. Not after everything. But deep down, I knew better. She meant it. I wasn't even angry at her, not yet. The anger was growing, but it wasn't about her. Not entirely. It was the fact that she had given me just enough to keep me in her orbit, just enough to let me dream, to make me feel like this could be something real. And now, it is over. Just like that. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, checking the time. 7:42 a.m. She'd told me to leave early before. Always. But she had never made me feel like a ghost, not until now. That coldness, that distant look, was all I could think about. Was I ever more than just something to fill the empty space when he wasn't around? The realization hit me like a freight train. She hadn't been playing a game. No, that would have been too kind. She had used me, kept me close when it suited her and pushed me away when I became inconvenient. I had never been her choice. I had always been a placeholder. I could feel it in my bones. She had lied to me, not just about the boyfriend, but about everything. There was no way she could have kissed me the way she had, whispered my name with such rawness, and still walked away as if it meant nothing. There was a betrayal in that, a betrayal that ran deeper than anything I'd allowed myself to believe. The rage started as a quiet buzz, but it quickly swelled, turning into something darker, more dangerous. My hands trembled, but not from fear. No. This was something else. Something that had been simmering beneath the surface for too long. I wanted to confront her. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to make her feel what I was feeling. But I knew that wouldn't get me anywhere. It would never get me anywhere. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to make sense of what had happened. My mind kept replaying her words, her actions, over and over, but I couldn't find a single thing that wasn't tinged with manipulation. She had played me, made me believe that we were more than just a one-night stand. And now, all I was left with was the bitter taste of being used. The anger shifted, twisted, and turned inward. Why had I been so foolish? Why had I let myself fall into this trap? I had been so certain, so naive. Every conversation we'd had, every glance, every touch, it was all a lie. My phone buzzed in my hand, breaking my spiral of thoughts. It was a text. From her. Hey. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's just. I have a boyfriend, and I don't think we should do this again. I read it twice, letting the words settle in my chest. It was a cop-out. A desperate attempt to soothe her own guilt, a way of pretending that she hadn't just shattered something inside me. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't an apology. It was a justification. A way to push the responsibility onto me, as if I had been the one to misinterpret everything. My fingers hovered over the keys. I could text her back. I could demand answers. But there was no satisfaction in that. No power. No control. I glanced at the door again, hearing the soft, rhythmic sound of the shower water splashing against porcelain. Her boyfriend, he, was out there. He had no idea. Did he? I couldn't tell if I felt more disgusted by the thought of him or more enraged at myself for being too weak to see the truth earlier. The room felt too small, too suffocating. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I needed to do something. Anything. I couldn't let this go. I couldn't just walk away and pretend like everything was fine. There was no dignity in that. No closure. The temptation to leave was overwhelming. To just grab my things and walk out the door, to vanish from her life forever. But that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I wanted revenge. Not just to hurt her, although part of me wanted that too, but to reclaim something. To prove that I was worth more than this, that I wasn't just a forgotten chapter in her story. I wasn't some side character who only existed for a brief moment of her narrative. I had more to offer. I wasn't disposable. And if she wanted to ignore that, then fine. But she wouldn't get away with it. I couldn't stand the idea of walking out with my tail between my legs, letting her think that this was over, that I was over. I couldn't give her that satisfaction. I went to the window, staring at the early morning light. The city was already alive, bustling with people who had no idea what I was feeling. What she had done to me. They went on with their lives, unaware that I was slowly cracking apart. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just her manipulation. It was the feeling of being invisible, of being someone who was never truly seen, never truly valued. She had used me like a tool, a means to an end, and now that I had served my purpose, I was discarded. But not this time. Not anymore. I turned away from the window, a new resolve hardening inside me. I wasn't going to leave quietly. I wasn't going to walk away. I would make her regret it. I would make her feel the weight of what she had done to me. And in doing so, I would make myself whole again. I couldn't just leave. Not like this. Not after everything. Not after the way she had looked at me, the way she had kissed me, and then tossed me aside like I was nothing. I had convinced myself that there was something real there, that maybe, just maybe, this was a sign that things were changing between us. But now, I had to face the brutal truth. She had never seen me. Not for who I was. Not for who I had become. I was just a distraction. A temporary fix to fill the void in her life. I paced back and forth in the room, the anger rising like a storm within me. The frustration, the hurt, it all felt so suffocating. I wanted to lash out, but I knew better. Screaming at her wouldn't help. Not anymore. She had already made it clear that I didn't matter. And that was fine. Because I was done playing her game. The sound of the shower turned off, and I froze. The familiar rhythm of the water, now absent, made my pulse spike. He was out there. Her boyfriend. The man who had always been there, even when I was too blind to see it. The man who had held her heart, the one who had been given everything, while I sat on the sidelines, waiting for a chance to prove that I was more than just a friend. He doesn't know. That thought gnawed at me, clawing at the pit of my stomach. He didn't know what had happened here. He didn't know the lies she had told him, the way she had led me on, only to dismiss me when it was convenient for her. He was out there, oblivious, while I was stuck in this room, stewing in my own bitterness. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to confront him. No, that wasn't the plan. The plan was different. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to make him the enemy, because the truth was, he wasn't the one who had wronged me. She had. I glanced at the door, then back at the window. The city beyond was alive, alive in a way that felt foreign to me now. People moved about with purpose, unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. Unaware of the darkness I was cultivating inside me. I needed control. I needed something to hold on to. The power that had been stripped away from me, the vulnerability she had exploited, it had to be reclaimed. I was done letting her dictate the narrative of my life. I moved toward the dresser and grabbed my phone again, staring at the screen. Her text still sat there, taunting me with its hollow apology. But it wasn't enough. She hadn't apologized for what she had done. She hadn't acknowledged the real damage she had caused. Her apology was a hollow shell, empty of any true remorse. I tapped the screen, composing a reply. I had to choose my words carefully. I didn't want to come across as desperate or angry. I needed to be calculated, measured. I needed her to feel what I felt, to understand the weight of her actions. You were never honest with me. I stared at those words, my finger hovering over the send button. I wanted to say more, so much more. But I couldn't. Not yet. She needed to feel the pain first. She needed to understand that she couldn't just walk away from me, from us, without facing the consequences. I put the phone down, pacing again. The weight of my anger still lingered, but now there was something else creeping in. A cold clarity. A sense of purpose. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was planning. And for the first time, I felt like I was in control. I had spent so much time obsessing over her, wanting her, needing her validation. But now, I realized that it had never been about her. It had always been about me. About proving to myself that I wasn't invisible. That I wasn't just another face in the crowd. I had spent so long building up the idea of us. I had constructed this fantasy in my mind, where she and I would be more than just friends. I had woven this story of how everything would fall into place, how we would finally be together, how we would finally have the life I had always wanted. But I had been too naive, too blind to see what was right in front of me. She wasn't going to change. She wasn't going to see me the way I wanted her to. And that's when the shift happened. If she wasn't going to see me the way I wanted, I'd make her see me in a different way. My phone buzzed again, snapping me out of my reverie. This time, it was a message from him. "Hey man, just checking in. Hope everything's cool with you and her." I froze. His message wasn't out of the ordinary. He was a nice guy, I guess. But the casualness of it all sent a fresh wave of fury surging through my veins. The audacity. The confidence. He had no idea what had really happened between us. No clue that while he was living his perfect life with her, I had been lying to myself, believing there could be something real between us. I should have been glad. Glad that she had him. Glad that she had someone who saw her for who she really was. But instead, all I felt was resentment. How could he be so blind? How could he not know that I was standing in the shadow of his perfect life, waiting for a moment that would never come? I didn't respond to his message. No. Instead, I leaned back against the wall, my fingers brushing the edge of the phone. Something was bubbling inside me, and it wasn't rage anymore. It was a quiet, simmering determination. I could see it now. The plan. I would make her regret this. I would make her regret every moment she had spent leading me on, every glance, every touch. She wasn't going to get away with this. Not without paying a price. And the best part? She had no idea. She had no idea what was coming. I could already feel the shift in the air, the weight of the decision settling in my bones. I wasn't going to just be the guy who had been used and discarded. No, I was going to make her see me, really see me, and when I was done, she would know exactly what she had thrown away. I stepped toward the door. The sound of the shower had stopped, and the quiet hum of the apartment felt oppressive. This wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't about proving anything to her anymore. It was about me, taking control of my narrative, rewriting my story. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I was going to be the one who walked away from this on my own terms. And when I walked out of this apartment, I would leave her with nothing but the memory of what she had lost. I don't know what I expected when I walked out the door of her apartment. I didn't know if I would feel relief, anger, or something else entirely. I didn't know what kind of person I would be when I left, but I sure as hell wasn't going to let myself be the same one who walked in. I was no longer a victim of her cruelty. She didn't own me anymore. I wasn't the guy she used when it suited her, and I wasn't going to be anyone's pawn. But as I stepped into the hallway, the sharp ring of the doorbell shattered the fragile calm that had enveloped me. I froze, caught off guard. The sharpness of that sound pulled me back to reality, and before I could make sense of it, the door creaked open. There he was. The boyfriend. He stood there, half-dressed in a robe, looking almost too casual. Like he had no idea what had transpired in that room, no clue that just hours ago, his girlfriend had tossed me aside like a broken toy. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to look him in the eye or run out the door. He smiled at me like we were old friends, like we were both just regular guys. "Hey man, what's up? Everything is cool with you and her?" The words hit me with the same casual tone as his greeting, as if he didn't even know the world-shattering tension hanging in the air between us. The very fact that he was asking about her made me want to laugh. Everything is cool. Was he serious? Did he have any idea what she had just done to me? I gave him a tight-lipped smile, forcing a casualness into my voice that didn't match the chaos in my head. "Yeah, man. Everything's fine." He raised an eyebrow, his smile faltering just slightly as if he could sense something wasn't right. He glanced over his shoulder, likely sensing the absence of her. Is she up yet? She was a little out of it when I left this morning. Out of it. That was one way to put it. She had left me tangled in her sheets, half broken, in pieces that I would spend the next few days trying to put together. I almost wanted to tell him exactly what had happened, expose the fact that I had spent the night in her bed, that I had been a part of something he was blissfully unaware of. But I didn't. I wasn't ready to hand him that victory. Instead, I looked him straight in the eyes, keeping my voice steady. She's still asleep. I'm sure she'll be up soon. He nodded absently and stepped back inside, leaving the door slightly ajar. I could have walked away right then, left the mess of the night behind me, and never looked back. But that wasn't what I was here for. I wasn't just going to walk away without some kind of reckoning. I had a plan now, one that involved more than just revenge. It wasn't about making him feel what I felt or confronting her about the betrayal. It wasn't about venting my anger. No. I was going to make her see me, and I was going to make him see her for who she really was. I wasn't leaving yet. I needed to be strategic, play this carefully. I needed to take control of the narrative. Actually, I said, my voice dropping just slightly, I think she mentioned something about needing a few more minutes to get ready. You know, she's not exactly a morning person. He shrugged. No big deal. I'll go grab a coffee down the street then. Want anything? I hesitated. This was it. The moment when I decided how far I was willing to go with this. The door was wide open. He was leaving. And I could easily walk away, forget this whole thing, and not look back. But the feeling inside me, the thing that had been building up for days, told me that I couldn't walk away. Not this time. No, I'm good, I said, my voice measured, even as I felt the knot in my chest tighten. I'll just wait here. He gave me a quick nod, flashing a smile that I now saw as hollow, like he was still oblivious to the deeper undercurrents swirling beneath us. He left, his footsteps echoing as the door clicked shut behind him. And that was when the reality of it hit me. This wasn't just about getting revenge on her anymore. This wasn't about punishing her. It was about something else entirely. It was about reclaiming my own power. It was about forcing a moment where she would have to look me in the eye and see the person she had so carelessly discarded. I had spent too long living in the shadows of her expectations, too long being the friend, the convenient shoulder to lean on, the other guy. But not anymore. I stepped back into the apartment, looking around the living room. It still had the same familiar scent, the one that had once made me feel welcome, safe, even loved. But now, it feels sterile. Hollow. It was a place I no longer belonged. I walked toward the kitchen, each step deliberate, as if I were preparing myself for something I knew would change the course of everything. I reached into the drawer and grabbed the bottle of whiskey she kept there, unscrewing the cap and pouring myself a drink. The burn of the alcohol did nothing to ease the tension. But I didn't care. The sharpness of it was fitting, a reminder of how sharply everything had shifted. I wasn't who I had been when I entered this apartment. I was something else now, something stronger, more determined. A part of me still wanted to confront her, to make her feel the weight of what she had done. But then, I heard her footsteps. She was awake. I didn't rush to meet her. Instead, I leaned against the counter, drinking my whiskey slowly, savoring the way it warmed me from the inside. When she walked into the room, I could tell the second she saw me. There was a flicker of surprise in her eyes. She wasn't expecting me to still be here, and she certainly wasn't expecting the calm, measured version of me that stood in front of her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She looked at me like she was searching for an explanation, a reason why I was still here. And then, I looked at her, not with anger, not with rage, but with a cold, hard clarity. I think we need to talk, I said, my voice steady. And in that moment, I knew. I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The silence between us stretched longer than it should have, the air heavy with unspoken words. She stood in the doorway, still wrapped in the haze of sleep, her hair a mess, her eyes wide and confused. The familiar softness of her face was gone, replaced by the same coldness that had settled into me hours ago. She had always been able to make me feel small, make me feel unseen, but now, I could see it, clearly, plainly, how little she had truly seen me. And I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. "Why are you still here?" she asked, her voice betraying the confusion she had to be feeling. She wasn't expecting me to still be standing in her kitchen, calm and composed, holding a glass of whiskey like I wasn't the person who had been humiliated just hours ago. I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. I had prepared for this moment, but I hadn't expected the flood of emotions to crash over me again, not this time. I had built myself into someone else entirely, someone who could walk away unscathed. But at this moment, I wasn't sure what I felt, relief, anger, or something else entirely. It didn't matter anymore. I was done caring about what she thought of me. "You told me not to come back." My voice was steady, almost too calm, as I took another sip of the whiskey. "But I think you owe me an explanation." She took a half step back, her eyes darting to the side, guilt flickering there like a shadow. "I never meant to hurt you. I thought we were just—" "Don't," I cut her off, my voice cutting through the room like a blade. "You didn't think so. That's the problem. You didn't think about how this would make me feel. You didn't think about the fact that you've been playing games with me from the start. And I let you." She blinked, visibly taken aback. Her defenses were rising, but I wasn't finished yet. She was so used to controlling the situation, so used to being the one who set the terms. But this time, the tables had turned. I wasn't the naive guy anymore. I wasn't the one she could twist and bend to her will. I set the glass down on the counter, my eyes not leaving hers. "You didn't think about how it felt to be the backup plan. To be the person you called when it was convenient, but then threw away like I was nothing when someone else showed up. You never considered what it did to me." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. It was as if she was trying to form a defense, trying to justify herself, but there was nothing left to say. I had taken all her excuses away. She couldn't hide behind the mask anymore. "Tell me," I continued, my voice colder now, "how many times did you tell him you loved him? How many times did you kiss him like you kissed me? How many moments did you make me believe this could be real, only to push me aside when it was over?" She flinched at the last words. The guilt that had been dancing in her eyes finally settled there like a weight. She had no answer, and that was the most powerful thing I could have said. There was no defense, no rationalization that could make what had happened feel less like betrayal. The room felt suffocating, but I didn't care. I wasn't afraid anymore. I stepped forward, the distance between us closing. I was never the second choice, you know. Not for me. I wanted you, fully, completely. I gave you everything I had, thinking there was something real between us. But you used me. For a moment, she looked lost. I saw the flicker of something in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or realization. But it didn't matter. Not anymore. I had nothing left to give her. She had already taken everything I could afford to give. I had already emptied myself out, and there was no reason to go back for more. I stepped back again, shaking my head as if I couldn't believe I had allowed myself to get this far. "I'm not angry at you, you know. Not anymore. I'm angry at myself. I'm angry at the fact that I let you make me feel like I wasn't enough. That I let you convince me that this was something I could hope for." Her lips parted, and I saw her open her mouth as though to apologize, but I cut her off. "Save it. I don't want your apologies. I've learned the hard way that they mean nothing if you keep making the same mistakes. No, what I want now is for you to look at me. Really look at me. Because you'll never see me the same way again. I took a final step back, distancing myself from her for the first time in all the years I'd known her. She had always had a hold on me, and even now, I could see the desperate part of her trying to claw her way back into my world. But I wasn't giving her that power anymore. I had been that person for too long, the one who waited for crumbs, the one who allowed emotional manipulation. But that person was dead now. Her eyes softened for a split second. Maybe she saw it too, the finality in my tone, the coldness that had taken root inside me. She opened her mouth to speak, but again, no words came. The realization was there. She understood. She couldn't fix this. She couldn't put it back together. I wasn't the same man who had walked in here. I had been fractured, and in the cracks, I had rebuilt myself into something stronger, something untouchable. And as I turned to leave, the weight that had hung over me for so long finally lifted. "You don't get to call the shots anymore," I said, my voice firm, steady. "I'm done waiting. I'm done being your backup." I walked toward the door without looking back. The apartment, her life, her manipulations, they were all behind me now. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. But there was something else, too, a sense of satisfaction. I had taken back control. I had confronted her, confronted myself, and walked away with my dignity intact. The journey to this moment had been long and painful, but it had been worth it. I was no longer the fool who was blinded by love. I was someone else now. Someone who understood the cost of betrayal and knew the value of his own worth. As I stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind me, I didn't feel like I had lost anything. I felt like I had gained everything.